Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Kulona, and this is Nashville. When was the last time you broke out a pen or pencil and crafted a handwritten letter? Thank you cards are nice, but they're far from a message that took time. Time to scribe words and meaning onto paper in hopes of transferring ideas, images, and most importantly, emotion. When I was young, I had a pen pal. See, I fell in love during summer camp at the Poconos when I was 10. When camp ended, my crush suggested we write to each other to keep in touch. It lasted for about 6 months. She and I wrote letters to each other mostly about our collective disdain for homework and our shared love of the television sitcom Facts of Life. Be it 6 months or 60 years, being pen pals with someone can be very special. Take the remarkable 30-plus year friendship between Barbara Westman, an Upper East Side New Yorker, eccentric artist who traveled the world with her renowned philosopher husband, and an elementary school girl from Texas, for example. Here's contributor Leslie Thompson with more.
Dear listener, when was the last time you wrote a letter and received a response and sent a response back? Recently, a friend and I decided to take this up, she being in East Nashville and I in East Hermitage. We made it to a grand total of 3 letters. But for some, writing letters back and forth can stick. Sharing dialogues over handwriting for years, decades even. Like for Keely Scott and her 30-plus year pen palship with Barbara, a renowned illustrator whose work lived on the covers of New Yorker magazines and in children's books, and lived in Manhattan with her distinguished philosopher husband, Arthur. Theirs is a story of an extraordinary relationship that evolved out of a handwritten letter. Here's Keely in her final letter to her pen pal, Barbara Westman.
Dear Barbara, it was 1990, and I was a spunky second grader in Houston, Texas. It was Christmas time, and my teacher, Mrs. Lucy Kuhn, had just returned from a trip to Manhattan. While there, she and her husband visited a small corner bookshop on the Upper West Side, right near Columbia University. That day, there happened to be a local author signing her newest book, The Day Before Christmas, A Story of Charlotte and Emilio. Charlotte and Emilio were the author's dogs, and that author was you. Mr. Kuhn had the great idea to give each of his wife's students a signed copy as a Christmas gift. As you know, I still have mine, and we read it every Christmas. It's one of my daughter's favorites now, too. One of our writing assignments upon returning from Christmas break was to write you a thank you note. To our complete surprise, you wrote us back. You even answered all of our silly and imaginative questions. I had even more questions, so my mom asked Mrs. Kuhn for your address that summer, and I wrote you, and you wrote back. Later that year, I received a package with your newest book, Dancing Dogs, and on the front page you wrote,
For Keely, special greetings from Barbara Westman, and woof woof and arf arf from Charlotte and Emilio too, of course.
You included an adorable sketch of me in the caption,
Keely, who loves to sing.
Gosh, I felt so special that you remembered I liked singing. I wrote you back, and you responded. You told me I was
full of peaches and cream and energy and enthusiasm.
And I believe you because that is how I would describe my daughter, and she is my mini-me. You would correct my penmanship and spelling, but one day you wrote,
I must compliment you, Keely. Your spelling used to be atrocious. Now it's really good.
In one letter, you said you thought of me often because my photo hangs on your fridge. I thought of you too. You made sure of that, like the time you sent me a Polaroid photo of yourself and said,
Here's a funny pic of me. I thought you might like it.
I loved it then, and I still love it now. And I loved that you almost always ended your letters with a heart and the sign-off.
Lots of love.
Or,
onward and upward.
In the late 90s, I got my first email, an AOL account, and was curious if we should move our correspondence into modern times instead of snail mail. I asked you if you had an email address, and you wrote back,
Email is for the birds. Let's stick to letter writing, baby.
and so we stuck to letters. 30 plus years, baby. You seem to enjoy my life as much as I enjoyed living vicariously through yours. In 2001, I wrote to tell you of my latest address change as I was moving to Nashville, Tennessee. When I arrived, I visited the apartment mailbox, and you had already sent a box with a note that read,
You will need this. Tennessee is much colder than Texas.
Inside the package was a vintage navy peacoat with red lining. The letter ended with,
Have you gotten to observe a lot of country western?
Oh, have I observed. You accompanied me to and through adulthood with your handwritten notes. For many years, I was a humanitarian photographer. In between flights, one day I had a layover in New York City and came to the apartment to see you two. It was surreal to have you and Arthur look through my photos while I told you the stories that brought them about. You asked questions and we discussed the meaning behind the images. I also brought some of your letters and postcards for us to look through. You were amazed at how I had kept them, and you loved seeing the book that bound them all together. I still have the book on my shelf to this day. I captured that moment with a photo of you holding the funny Polaroid you sent me years before. As I made my way to the airport after our time together, I remember walking towards Central Park and crying as I clutched onto the letters that I had brought with me, realizing how special our relationship was. Today, I received the call that you had passed. As I processed the news of the loss, I gathered my copies of your books, looked at the framed New Yorker covers that hang above my desk, and your watercolor of the Paris Opera House. Stories of our 30-year friendship fill my home, and I am overwhelmed with gratitude that I got to be a part of a story like ours. Tonight, as I write you this one last letter, I am in awe of the miraculous gift Mrs. Kuhn gave us that Christmas so long ago. It was the gift of you and the story of our beautiful friendship, a story told over letters between an artist on the Hudson and her little friend from Texas. Missing you, onward and upward with lots of love. Keely.
Keely Scott is with us in the studio to talk about her friendship with Barbara. Keely, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you for having me.
Really a pleasure to have you here. So tell us about Barbara Westman. Who was she?
Yeah, she was a character and full of life, super artistic. She her career started as a painter and an art student. And then she became an illustrator for children's books. She kind of just did all sorts of things. She was an illustrator for the New Yorker magazine. But my way of knowing her was that she was an artist and a children's book author. And I have since learned of all the things that she did. But she was just hilarious. She wore these huge black-rimmed glasses, and they were so classically Barbara. She had sayings, you bet your boots, baby. All these hilarious whammo sayings that she would say, and they just came through in the way that she wrote all of her letters as well.
So she was an interesting person.
Yes.
I also understand that where she lived was an interesting place.
It was.
Describe her enigmatic apartment.
Yeah, that's great. So it was Upper West Side overlooking the Hudson River. And you would walk up and you'd open the door. And I mean, even as a kid, the first time I got to visit, I was around 8 years old, and just floor to ceiling books, just bookshelves full of books and art everywhere. It was the most eccentric, beautiful, curated in the chaos of art, just flooding her apartment. And in her studio, there was a circle glass table where you would sit and talk to and have tea. And then right behind you was her studio. And I remember as a little kid just staring at all the paints and the pencils and the papers and just art stacked in corners and piles that was just so beautiful and meaningful. And then there's this random cactus in the corner that I have a picture of when I was 7 visiting. And over the years, so 30 plus years, that cactus is still there in the window. And it has just grown to this monster of a cactus that sits there. But it's the images that I was always able to visualize when she would send a letter from home.
How different is that from like the environment where you grew up?
Very. I grew up in Texas, Houston, Texas. I remember one time she sent me a painting and it said, and it was already framed, and she said, please keep this away from any window windows. It's a lot hotter in Texas than it is in New York. So she was always so great at kind of letting me even see the differences of where, as a child, you grow up and you kind of have your surroundings. And here she was traveling and doing all these things, writing back to me, telling me these places that were so different than where I grew up, but still asking me questions about where I grew up as well.
Tell us about her husband, Arthur.
Yeah. So Arthur was a very well-known art philosopher. And I always actually love telling the story that I had no idea that that's what he did until I was a freshman, I believe, at Belmont University, an art history class. And our professor handed us a book by Arthur C. Danto. And I remember thinking, that's Barbara's husband's name. And I flipped it over the back and it was his picture. And that was actually the moment I realized who Arthur was, which I always tell her nephew, who I'm dear friends with now, how embarrassed I am at that statement because I now realize who Arthur was as a philosopher. So that also helps you understand their home with the art and the creative and the conversations that were filling that home and in her letters.
What was it to you as it dawned upon you that this woman you've been corresponding with and her husband were pretty big deals in their own right?
I didn't put it together until way later in life. And so I think for me, what I think about when her friendship and the big deal that they are, the word that lately has come to mind is how generous she was with her friendship. Here she was traveling all over. And somehow she found the time to see sunflowers in Normandy and grab a postcard and send me a postcard in the mail. And knowing how lives are busy, pen palship is not as common as it used to be. And then knowing what she and her husband do for a career, to know that she was so generous with her time and creativity to give that gift to a 7-year-old, or at that point, as I was growing, a little kid in Texas. That's kind of when I think back more on, is I'm just kind of in awe of their life and how I was still able to be a part of it.
Now, there was a point in this piece that we heard. Technology opened up the opportunity to email.
Yep.
You reach out.
Yeah.
Hey, Barbs.
Yeah.
Let's email each other.
Yeah.
She says, no, that's passe.
Yeah. Emails for the birds.
Emails for the birds. I want nothing to do with that.
Yep.
Okay. So you continue handwritten correspondence.
We did.
But you're of a generation in a time where everyone's doing a thing electronically. I just have to ask you, have you taken up, has handwriting letters, Has that become a part of your practice?
I am good at thank you notes.
Okay.
So that would be
it's a very
something.
Southern thing to do.
It is. Yep. And if I would say too, I will write a letter to someone if something's going on in their life. But I don't have another pen pal outside of Barbara.
Okay.
But she did kind of teach me, right, the intentionality behind a handwritten letter. And as she got older, she couldn't write as much. And so we would talk on the phone and all of that. But that was still, I actually think I remember it was probably, I don't remember, 10, 15 years ago, Fritz, her nephew, I asked, I was like, so she really doesn't have an email? And he's like, oh, no emails. And the bottom of her letters, like her stationery even said, no email, and it had her phone number instead.
That's wonderful. Okay, now final question for you before we go to break. You two met through the gifting of a book from your fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Kuhn,
That's right. Second grade
teacher.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Miss Kuhn and her husband were in New York, and he saw this book that was like in the corner bookshop window. The author was there signing. And I think he just was like, hey, Lucy, this would be a great gift for all your kids. We got the book and we wrote a letter to her and she wrote us back. And that's how my relationship started.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to learn more once we come back from break. And when we come back, we're going to learn more about the unique relationship Keely had with Barbara and Mrs. Kuhn through over 30 years of writing letters. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
I have 2 kids under 10, and I'm so glad that WPLN helps make their world just a little bigger. It's hard, I think, as a parent when you have a lot on your plate to just help develop your kids through daily life to find either the time or the right words to talk about some of the really complicated things. Because they heard something on WPLN, they asked us, which then was an invitation for us to have that broader conversation that we otherwise probably wouldn't have had. I'm Caitlin in Mount Juliet, and I support WPLN.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was beautiful, and so beautiful that WPLN can bring you these local stories that you rely on to connect you to your community. Thank you so much. I'm Carrie Pagetta. I'm here with the illustrious Char Daston.
Oh, thanks, Carrie.
You're welcome. And we're coming to you on day one to say thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. We're enjoying this beautiful story, and we hope you are too. And this is Nashville Today about pen pals. It's just so charming and heartwarming. And who doesn't need a little more of that during this holiday season?
I definitely, it can be a very stressful time of year, despite the fact that there are so many holidays this season. And, one of the things that I love about listening to public radio and to WPLN in particular is that you learn things about the world around you and your community that you might not have known before, or think about your community in new ways. So this segment about this deep connection between one of our neighbors and someone who lived in Manhattan across the country. Earlier during Fresh Air, I was hearing about how we can build new housing and how if you look at how neighborhoods are planned, there's too many one-story buildings. It just makes you look at the world around you in a different way. And I think that's a really important service that WPLN provides.
Absolutely. I think they provide this ultra local, and we kind of zoom out to bigger picture items too. It's very important. We know that you're listening. We have some exciting things we want to talk about while we're with you in the Char and Care hours today. And we want to talk about, we have an hourly goal of $1,000 that we hope you'll get in on. And we have 2 people that have already pledged today, and a very exciting match, dollar for dollar, for every new member that joins us as and pledges to our station. So I want to shout out Robert, who just became a new member, and we appreciate you, Robert. And Angela, also in this hour, you're getting us closer to $1,000, and you are getting matched dollar for dollar. Join them today by calling 615-760-2010.
That's right, Carrie. It's very easy to join Robert and Angela. You can also, if you're not a phone person, you can go to WPLN.org, and there is a big banner at the top of the page that says donate, and that is where you can donate. We want to reach out to new members, people who have never donated before. This is the time for trying new things right before the new year. And if you are a new member and you give right now, your donation will be matched dollar for dollar. We actually have a secret pen pal for you, a bunch of older not older in age, but older in status members who have teamed up to match each contribution from a new member dollar for dollar. So every dollar you donate as a brand new member who's never given before turns into $2. It's very easy. Just go to WPLN.org and you'll see the donate button.
I love what you did there, Char, in saying new member. Think about new resolution. You've been listening for a while, and now is the time to contribute so that we are here for you. You are contributing to our future existence, and we appreciate it. You can pen pal us and give us a message when you donate online at WPLN.org and just say, hey guys, I'm going to be here now and always.
We see every message, it pops up on our screen, and we are so grateful every time we see what WPLN and public radio means to you. You can give now at WPLN.org or call 615-760-2010. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. Today, we're talking about the friendship between Keely Scott and renowned artist Barbara Westman. Their 30-year friendship developed through their correspondence as pen pals. Now, before the break, we heard about how their friendship began. Now let's learn how the relationship has impacted the lives of both Keely and Barbara. Keely, again, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It's really remarkable how you got to experience this really wonderful, incredible, unique woman in this very, very special way. She's like living this renowned life as an artist, and you a very different life, an elementary school girl from Texas. What was it like to read her letters as you were growing up and as you heard about all of her grand adventures?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, it was taking me to faraway places and rooms of people that I could just sit there and visualize, because she was obviously very artistic with her words as well and very descriptive. So, you know, writing about the cafes in Paris where she had a dinner and how actually, I remember one that said something about smoking, and she said it in French. And she said, well, in Texas, you're going to have barbecue smoke. And here in France, in the restaurant, we have smoking. And, you know, I just could picture all of these things that she would write me. And I was very creative as a child as well, artistic, doing musicals. And I would send her things that I was doing. And it always just seemed to, unaware at the time, but now I can see how it always informed each other as I grew older.
Okay, so as you grew older, you know, what role did Barbara play in your life as you look back now at this relationship and friendship?
I mean, there was definitely the times where I was too cool, you know, and I probably didn't write as much. But it was probably when I was early 20s. And I kind of just realized how incredibly special this was. And I was very grateful that I had the opportunity to be in New York a handful of times over the years. And I would always make a point to see her. And it just became this. And as you're talking to friends and it doesn't exist, you realize this unique, beautiful thing that was mine. And it was just this friendship of shared commonalities and different joys and some hard things as well that was uniquely mine.
Okay, so I'm interested in that. Did she ever offer you advice that maybe you were hesitant to come to your parents or other adults in your immediate vicinity with? Did you reach out to Barbara, who's this worldly, wonderful, enigmatic artist and this human being? Did you ever talk to her, you know,
about advice?
Yeah, about advice.
I mean, I definitely told her about when I was dating my now husband.
Okay.
And you know, some of that back and forth, and when she would finally get to meet him. You know where I think I actually feel the most in this is, for years I was a humanitarian photographer. And she would offer advice, looking through the photos and looking at what I was doing, and just really help me kind of hone in on how you tell the story through a through a photo, and how as a photographer I would do that. Which now thinking back, the fact that they took the time to even do that is just beautiful. So yeah,
you have someone who is a mentor and a friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question about pen pals. Why are they unique and important? Why do you think so?
Well, I think that it creates this dreamlike scenario that is real, that you get to kind of just escape into a friendship that is, you know, you're not tangibly with each other, but it's a tangible form of being together through handwriting.
Excellent. It really seems significant that Mrs. Kuhn, your second grade teacher, introduced you both. And, you know, teachers play really a huge role in our lives. Who was Mrs. Kuhn to you?
Oh, she was the best. Mrs. Kuhn, Mrs. Lucy Kuhn is what we, got to get the Texas accent in there. Like the fact that she had us write a thank you note when you mentioned earlier how Southern, right? So we get this book. Barbara had autographed each of the books. And the fact that Lucy had us write a thank you note to Barbara, and then the return of that. And then throughout the years, Lucy stayed at my school, which my sister went to. So we were still in contact. Our families were friends. And so Lucy got to know that this gift that she gave a 7-year-old through a book and through a friend and a letter was something that I've carried on with me through my adult life. Lucy was still a part of knowing that existed.
Tell me about the last time you saw Barbara in person.
It's my favorite story to tell, especially at Christmas time. So it was it was Christmas time, and I was on Madison Avenue, which if you're in New York City, you know that is actually the worst place to be at Christmas because it's so crowded.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah. And I had been there for work, and I had gone, I was on my phone distracted, and I missed the block for my hotel. And I was hurrying because I had an Uber waiting to take me before my flight that evening to go see Barbara. And so I had missed a block. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. And all of a sudden a bus passes through. And as the bus passes in front of me, I look across the street and I see, who I've not seen in probably 15 plus years, Lucy Kuhn and her husband, Mike. And I remember I just yelled, Lucy Kuhn. And from the distance, I hear Keely Orr. And we cross the street. And after our what are you doing here, right, of just getting to see each other, she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to see Barbara. And her eyes just filled up. It makes me teary. And she said, I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm going with you. And so we jump in this Uber and we go up to the Upper West Side. And I had called Barbara's nurse at the time to let her know that I was coming. And I go in first just to not startle her. And I sit on her bed and I said, "Hey, Barbara." And she said, "Keely Orr from Texas." She would always say that. She'd go, "Keely Orr from Texas, Lucy Kuhn." And she would always repeat our names together, which is actually even beautiful as well. And I sat down and I said, "You're never going to believe this. I was walking across the street on Madison Avenue and I saw Lucy Kuhn and she is with me." And she tried to sit up in that bed and I'm helping her up. And she said, "Lucy Kuhn is here." And they hadn't seen each other in probably 20 plus years or even communicated at that point. And I said, "She's here." And so together, Lucy walks in and we get to sit together and have this moment. And I got to tell both of them thank you. I got to say thank you to Miss Kuhn for introducing me to Barbara, and I got to say thank you to Barbara for writing back. And we had this moment, and Barbara, as I told you, was hilarious with her words. She goes, "This is just unbelievable. Lucy Kuhn, Keely Orr, Texas, here in my apartment. It is a miracle on the Hudson." And we sat there and I was like, it is a miracle on the Hudson. And to be honest, when I left that day, I kind of knew that was my last time seeing her while she was still alive.
How did that feel?
Oh, I still can't speak about it without full emotion. It was such a surreal, like all those things happening, missing a block, seeing Lucy, who I haven't seen in forever. Lucy hadn't even been to the city in, I think, 20 years. And getting to sit and say thank you to these two women was such a beautiful gift.
Were you able to stay in touch with Lucy Kuhn?
Oh, yeah. So she and I still talk, actually reconnected to where we talk. And thanks to social media, I think we're Facebook friends and we know each other there.
When you think about teachers, you know, and their impact that they can have on kids, and this lifelong, very impact that's of a big magnitude for you in your life.
Yeah.
Your daughter's here.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to join us pretty soon after we take this next break.
Yep.
What do you want from her when it comes to her relationship with teachers?
Oh, I think like the beauty of this story right now is that my daughter is a second grader, the same year that Miss Kuhn introduced me to Barbara. And I look at teachers and that gift and how the smallest thing, right? Sometimes it's going to hit, sometimes it's not. You were a teacher in your past. Like there are things you don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And the beauty that they do investing in the life of a child. And so like even this week, unbeknownst to her teacher, they were reading The Jolly Postman and Dear Juno, both books about pen pals. And so when Everly got to tell her teacher that this is happening, you know, that they see things and they know things and they pour into these parts of your kid that are so needed and then give gifts that show up 30 plus years later.
I understand you just attended a service in Barbara's very apartment that was held by her nephew.
Yeah.
Okay, and you spoke there, right?
I did.
Take us there. Tell me about that experience.
Her nephew, Fritz, I just love dearly. And he called me the day she passed to tell me. And I knew it would be a handful of months later before the service would happen. And he just beautifully gathered some of her friends, one friend that was around her age, 95. But it was this room full of, I mean, I felt so out of place, to be honest with you. I had this, got my Southern twang, and here they all are, New Yorkers and from Boston area. And it was about 30 people, just friends from the art community in her world. And they all gathered together, that same glass coffee table that we would all sit at, or dining table. Everyone was there. And Fritz was so beautiful in how he had actually taken down a lot of the artwork. Same apartment. So he's been in there lately. He had taken down a lot of the artwork and put up all of Barbara's. And so the entire apartment was curated with Barbara's artwork. And he himself is extremely artistic and had curated the most beautiful display of how her art had changed throughout the years. And so we all sat there looking at pieces that some people had never seen. I had printed off all of my letters, and he asked me to speak and share. And so I shared that story about New York and seeing Barbara. But what I took away the most is that I was able to tell them about a part of their friend that they didn't know about. Not many of them knew that she had a pen pal. Now, she was known for her handwriting and for her letters. And all of them would talk about the gift it was to receive a letter from Barbara. But when I stood there with all of my letters and they got to look through them, and to re-see some of her stories, right, about where she had traveled, I was able to tell them, kind of what I said earlier, about this generous part of their friend that they had no idea had existed. And that was such a beautiful gift that Fritz gave me to be able to do.
Do you look at those letters from time to time?
They sit on my bookshelf. Now the originals are in a book that's like do not touch it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But then I had printed off some of those, and I do. And then I've got her art really does fill my home. New Yorker covers, some lithographs that she's done, paintings. And so I definitely think of Barbara every single day.
You know, listeners, you can learn more about the story by visiting KeelyScott.com. But I got to ask you, Keely, you know, have you ever opened up this book that you have, looked at one of the letters you wrote her, maybe when you were 15 or 19 or 22, and you read it and you say, oh, Lord, what was I thinking?
So I have what she's written back. My favorite is where she told me my spelling was atrocious and that I had gotten better. And I actually am like, well, I must have been using a dictionary because my spelling is still not the best. I think I open them up and just see so much joy. And I think about the job that I do now and travel being such a passion of mine. And I know that she played a huge part of that.
All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll see how Keely's legacy of letter writing is being passed on to the next generation with her daughter, Everly. You can stay with us. This is Nashville.
Everybody talks about driveway time, but I am like the queen of driveway time. I have been caught up in so many stories because I will get home and I'm like, I can't get out of the car yet because I'm still invested in this show. I can't go in, Radio Lab's on, or, whatever the case is. I'm Kathy in Manchester, Tennessee, and I support WPLN.
Hey, thanks, Kathy in Manchester. Carrie, I think both of us have driveway moments all the time.
Absolutely.
And I think that there are often stories where you are really invested in the life of someone else that you don't know. And that's one thing I love about WPLN is we introduce you to your neighbors that you might not know, but who are going through some really interesting, important things in their lives. Hey, I'm Char Daston. I am here with the wonderful Carrie Pagetta. And it is day one of our winter fundraising flurry here at WPLN. We have a $1,000 goal for this hour. But because of a special match we have with some wonderful long-term members who have donated a match. If you are a new member, if you've never given before, $1 turns into $2. So we have $750 left to raise. But if you give $375, then that gets us to our $1,000 by the end of the hour goal. But really, any donation amount makes a difference for us. So you can give now. Go to WPLN.org.
Absolutely, Char. And with that, we give back to you. If you come in at $15 a month, Char and I, we got the memo today because we are both rocking. He is wearing his beautiful hunterish green Go Public Nashville Public Radio t-shirt. There's only a few of them left. Limited quantities, guys. Special gift to anybody in your life. If you come in at $15 a month, I'm wearing the WNXP black tee with some beautiful puffy letters. Emily Elizabeth Miller was the designer on these, and they're so whimsical. And here's a way to make connection in the outside world. Go to WPLN.org. Give now $15 a month, and you can make a connection by seeing someone wearing this shirt on the street and know that they are members just like you.
Right. $15 a month gets you the WPLN or WNXP t-shirt, and supplies are going fast. So give now at WPLN.org. And it's just such a wonderful, whimsical design. The letters of the call letters of our station are spelled out in iconic Nashville buildings like the Ryman and the Batman building. I mentioned this earlier, but, we have a dollar for dollar match going on for new members. So, if you have never given before, now is the time because $1 turns into $2. And, Carrie and I, we are very grateful for every donation we get, and you know, it's we are so grateful that we might break out into song because
Well,
we're
we
both
might just do it.
Yeah. So if you give to us, we might just take a page from the book of Fiddler on the Roof and start singing, "Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find, catch me a catch. Matchmaker, matchmaker, look through your book and make me a perfect match." Yes.
You know you want to do it. If that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will.
Well, or if you want us to stop singing, leave us a little comment when you donate, and we will.
But
we will
be
listen.
gentle,
That's
please.
right. Yes. But this is what happens when you let two theater kids into a studio and put them on the radio live. Hey, you can join Samantha from Warrensville, North Carolina, our neighbors to the east, who says, "I love this station." Well, Samantha, thank you for listening, even though you aren't in our terrestrial radio area. Turning on your computer and listening to us online, you can listen to us anywhere around the world, and we love the people who are listening from afar, and we love the people who are here in our community. It's very easy to donate and support us wherever you are. WPLN.org or 615-760-2010.
Yeah, you can give now. It's easy peasy, 90 seconds. Pull your car over. Don't have a driveway moment, but pull it over and give now.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. We're talking about pen pals today on the show. We're starting off with this incredible story of local Nashvillian Keely Scott and her 30-year friendship with Barbara Westman, who passed away earlier this year. Now, Keely's daughter, Everly, is 7 and is taking up letter writing herself. Keely, I want to welcome you back to This is Nashville. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, so glad to be here today.
And Everly, thank you so much for being here yourself. How's it going?
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so you're not in school today. You're going to be here with us.
Yes.
So far, I'm going to ask you this at the end when we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more fun being here or in school?
Ooh.
I like both.
Okay. That's the perfect answer. You're well on your way. Okay, so we were talking to your mom about her relationship with Barbara. Do you remember meeting Barbara and hearing about your mom and Barbara's relationship that they had through their letters they wrote to each other?
Yes, I do. I remember going to her apartment and seeing all of the artwork and meeting her and seeing the big plant and cactus and talking to her.
What do you think? How funky was that cactus? I hear it's like legendary.
Yeah, it was really big.
Really big?
Yeah.
And prickly?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't touch it at all, did you? Good
no.
call. I fell into one once. It was not pretty. Yeah. All right, so Keely, tell me this. You work for an organization called Compassion International.
I do.
Which allows people from the U.S. to sponsor children in developing countries for their education and necessities. Mm-hmm. One of the hallmarks of this relationship is a personal connection that the kids have with their sponsors through letter writing. Tell us more about it.
Yeah. So Compassion, we work in 28 different countries. We have over 2 million kids, and we work around 8,000 local church partners is how we work. So just like you said, sponsoring a child covers the needs, but one of the beautiful aspects of sponsoring a child is the one-to-one relationship through letter writing. Mm-hmm. And so with that letter writing for a kid who's growing up in extreme poverty, you are given the chance to offer them value and hope in a way that is tangible that they have yet to see.
That's really cool. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you to be a part of this?
Oh, it's incredible. So I've been a part of the work that we get to do for the last 20 years. And my role now is helping people get to tell our story. And so I think you can probably tell I love storytelling. Mm-hmm. And so this is a story that I'm really honored that I get to tell.
Okay, so how has your experience being pen pals with Barbara Westman for 30 years impacted like the way you see the program and some of the experience you bring to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually referred to it in that piece at the beginning. It reminded me of it that time I was holding the letters and I was walking up, leaving their apartment on West 110th, walking up, and I was just crying, holding these prized possessions. And over my years with Compassion, when you're visiting a home of a child, often you'll say, "Do you have your letters?" And they run to their 1-bedroom house in the corner. And I specifically think about this little girl in the DR, and I was sitting in her home, and she runs to the corner. She gets her shoebox that's bounded up with lots of rubber bands to keep it safe. And inside the shoebox is a plastic bag. And inside the plastic bag are letters from her sponsor. And it doesn't, that joy of a child no matter where they are in the world, of something being uniquely theirs and something that where somebody sees them is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Now, Everly, I heard through the grapevine that you have your own pen pal from the Compassion Program. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us about her?
So she normally gives me lots of artwork in her, because she's littler and she can't write that well.
Okay.
So she gives me cute pictures. And I also have a high school compassion kid, and I normally get pictures of him playing sports and basketball.
Okay. So what do you write to them?
I normally write, "How are you doing?" And they ask me questions, and it's fun to see how they're doing too. And they ask me to pray for them and all sorts of stuff, and I love it.
They love it. That's really cool. How long have you been friends with these kids?
Basically since I was a little child.
Since you were a little child, much younger than 7, because
Yeah.
7, you have so many responsibilities in the world these days. I understand it's hard being 7. You know, are you happy that you're a part of the program? What does it bring to you when you get to when you decide, hey, I'm going to write a letter to one of my friends? Tell me about your process. How are you setting up?
Well, I normally get a lot of pencils and ready to write, and the last letter that they write me, I answer their questions, and then I ask them lots of questions, and it's fun to see how they respond.
So do you have a special place yourself where you keep the letters that they've written you?
I have a whole drawer upstairs in my room on my desk, and it's full of all compassion notes.
Oh, compassion. That's your compassion drawer. So is this right? Time for you to write letters, it's compassion time for you. Maybe we can all take a page out of your book, Everly, and put some compassion time in our days ourselves. That's really, really cool. Now, Keely, we heard in the feature like several moments where you compared your young self to your daughter.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself in her now, especially when it comes to writing these letters?
Her creativity. And I think I love that part where it's like I called her Spunky because she's a fun, spunky kid. And her creativity comes out, but also her empathy and her compassion towards others and how she writes. She takes time to do it, and she cares about it, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, now, Evs, is it okay if I call you Evs? Okay, awesome. Now, do you like draw pictures and stuff and send them to the people you write with? What do you like to draw?
Well, I like to draw like what's happening in the moment, like draw me doing like what I like basketball or something like a sport, something that I like to do, and then they write back and draw a picture of what they like to do, and it's really fun to see how they draw and stuff.
Basketball is one of your favorite sports?
Yes.
Who's your favorite player?
I don't really have a favorite player. I don't watch basketball, but I play basketball.
She plays it.
Oh, yeah, you play it. You ain't wasting no time in front of a television. You're out there playing it. Okay, so what's your favorite position?
Well, I like being like more at the front of the goal to be able to shoot it instead of being like in the back defensing it.
Okay, so you want to score all the points.
Yes.
Are you on a team?
What's your team name?
The Narwhal City Hoopsters, because we were on a soccer team and we were called the Narwhal City Kicks.
So now you're the Hoopsters.
The Hoopsters.
And are you guys good?
Yes.
You're very good.
Yeah, we have less players this year. We only have 4 players, and the other team has 7. So we didn't have any subs out. So we play hard.
You play hard. They're good.
Now, okay, so do you talk to your high school pen pal about basketball? Do they give you tips on how you can score better?
Yeah, sometimes. I've heard a lot of letters from the little girl, but the boy sends me more like sports things and tips.
Yeah? Now, I understand you have a pen pal whose mom is from California who knows your former teacher?
That's right. It's actually one of my friends, Drew, who was also in Miss Kuhn's class. His daughter, who is Ev's same age, Penelope, they just started writing in the last year and a half, which is pretty crazy. You think how full circle that is, that Drew was also, now Drew did not keep writing, Barbara, but how beautiful that, again, back to teachers and that gift, Drew had it as well. And now Ev and Penelope write letters as well. Phoebe, sorry, I said Penelope, Phoebe.
Now, Ev, would you like to meet your pen pal letter writers one day?
Yes.
Yeah? Do you want to meet them sooner or later, when you're grown up or when you're still a kid?
Well, compassion kids, I have to be older, like 10, but I'm excited to meet them when I get to.
Yeah. So, okay, well, you're 7 now. When's your birthday?
January 28th.
Oh, so you're about to be 8 anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, hey, you'll be able to meet them sooner than later.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to just ask you some general questions because I'm curious and interested. Is English or handwriting your favorite subject in school?
Yes.
It is. All right. Are you guys learning cursive right about now?
I'm learning it next year, but I already, I've been last year a little bit of cursive, but once we get older, we're learning more cursive.
So you're going to be ready. By the time cursive comes around with all this letter writing, you're going to be showing the teacher how to do it, huh? I'm on for that. Tell me this, when you grow up, what are you thinking you want to do for work?
Well, work at our shop, Ladybird, but maybe be an artist, or because I like drawing.
You like drawing? Okay. Do you think maybe one day you could draw a picture for us here at This Is Nashville?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so look, you're here on the radio. You're not at school. Your mom knew and had a long-time friendship with a very famous, very influential person. Do you think your mom is cool?
Yeah.
She's pretty cool, huh? That's awesome. All right, so what do you want for the new year?
Well, I want to keep doing pen pal stuff with my friends and just learning more about them and seeing what they're once they said to pray for them because their family was in a hard time, and I just like hearing how they're doing. It's very fun.
That's really awesome. Will you be pen pals with us here at This Is Nashville?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to thank Keely and Everly Scott. Thank you both.
Oh, thank you so
much for being
having
here
me.
and sharing us this story. You're inspiring me to pick up a pen and write some letters.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, and thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Leslie Thompson. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi. Welcome back. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation does not end here. You can comment and tell us what you want to hear from the show by leaving us a quick message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and for now, you can still tweet us at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil A. Colonna. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.
So when my daughter turned 10, her decision was not to get presents from her friends, but instead to ask for donations to WPLN. That would have been 8 years ago, and we were heading into 2016 election. And even as a 10-year-old, she was really taken by all the dynamics heading into that election, and she thought that was really important. I'm Todd in Nashville, and I support WPLN.
Well, thank you, Todd. We appreciate your support. This is Carrie Pagetta coming to you on our first day of this winter flurry. I'm here with the wonderfully talented Char Daston, Char and Care Hour here. We heard from Thomas in Nashville, who made a gift and picked out the T-shirt that we were talking about in our last time with you to give to his wife for Christmas. Thank you, Thomas.
What a great Christmas gift.
I know, right? You can have it too for $15 a month. Become a new member. Join us today by going to WPLN.org and give now.
Hey, whether you're a new member or you've given before and you just really want the shirt, it is worth it and supplies are limited. So now is the time to go to WPLN.org and give. We've also heard from Min in Brentwood who says, WPLN is my favorite station to listen to, and I learn so much every time I do. I've been listening since high school, and now I'm a first-year medical student. WPLN is a big part of my personal education. We were hearing just this hour in This is Nashville about how important good teachers can be. And, I got into journalism for the same reason that I used to want to be a teacher. I love to find out about stuff and to explain it to people in a way that's accessible to them, in a way that makes them understand why they should care. And that is the kind of work that, my colleagues here at WPLN do every single day. And if you want to support that work of just, taking in the fire hose of information that is here for us in the world and making it into something understandable and accessible, you can give right now at WPLN.org.
Char, I'm glad you elaborated on that a little bit because you do that so well. Like with the Metro Arts Commission, you dove deep, you broke it down, and we all came to a greater understanding. And all of the reporters here do such a fantastic job of bringing us in, bringing us the information, allowing us to think through things and understand. It's so important. We want to say now more than ever, and you can help that legacy continue by calling Talk to a Human, 615-760-2010.